What's up? Sebi here with a new deck tech. I made a new mage deck called Freezing Band, and I want to show you guys what I came up with. So first off, this deck is a control heavy deck that works really well into both really aggressive decks and decks that draw a lot of cards. We have many defensive tools and a combo with which we can discard all our opposing hand cards during his turn, which is really unique. I don't think there's any other way to do this. And let's show you how we pull it off during games. First off, we have Retainer Ethan. When Retainer is destroyed, target player discards his hand, then draws that many cards. We target our opponent while we have Freezing Band on board. Each opponent can't draw more cards than one card per turn. Meaning if we destroy Retainer Ethan during his turn, after he already drew his card, he can't draw any more cards after he discards his hand. We have multiple ways to trigger Retainer's effect during our opponent's turn. First one would be Smoldering Blast. We deal 3 fire damage to target ally. Then we have Shadowfang Keep and Twisted Arcana. Both Shadowfang Keep and Twisted Arcana destroy Ethan as a cost, so your opponent won't even have time to react with any instant. Twisted Arcana is also on its own really valuable, since we destroy an ally ability or equipment we control and draw 2 cards. Meaning we can destroy Ethan, discard all his cards, including the card he already drew for the turn, and then draw 2 cards ourselves. Really nasty into slower decks. And into faster decks, we have a strong ally line. First, we have Broderick Langforth, a really strong ally since he gives us permanently 1 assault when he's in the graveyard. Also, we can sacrifice Broderick with Shadowfang Keep. Shadowfang Keep lets us destroy an ally and pay 2 less to play our next ally this turn. So we can either use this during our opponent's turn to trigger Ethan's effect or any other effects. Also is useful as reactive tool if your opponent has cards that target our allies and give anything additional. For example, Legacy of Betrayal. You will want to destroy your ally instead of banishing the ally and every other copy of that ally in your deck and hand. So Shadowfang Keep is a nice reactive tool, but also makes us pump out our cards quicker. Then we have Water Elemental. The effect is very strong into decks that have a lot of allies and into, for example, weapon decks. Since we can tap, deal 1 damage to each opposing hero and ally, and each of those who have been dealt damage can't attack. Then we have Garmon, Hero of Orgrimmar. He's a very complicated ally, so you have to be careful how you use him, since he gives every hero and ally conspicuous, meaning that every other hero and ally can protect against them. He also removes stealth from any ally and can protect every hero and ally, including himself. And while he's protecting, he won't receive damage. So it's a really strong protective tool against decks that use only a few strong allies, and a strong offensive tool against decks that don't have any allies, since he has 5 attack. Furthermore, we have Baxton. Baxton has Empower Mage, meaning you only want to play him in mage decks, but in mage decks he's very strong. We can deal 3 fire damage divided as we choose when he enters the board. This is a strong card against decks that have a lot of low health allies. Also is good DPS. The win conditions in this deck would be Daedalus the Graveborn, 4 mana, 4/3 protector and has a scaling effect that deals 1 shadow damage for each resource we control to opposing hero once he's destroyed. And we heal for as much damage as we did. Also really nice is Eternal, meaning we can shuffle him back into our deck when he's destroyed. Last alloy we play is Toshi Chaos Render. He's also a win con into slower decks. He pairs well with other cards we have. Toshi prevents our opponent from questing, and he gets +1/+1 for each face down resource. Yeah. And we can complete our opponent's quests, also really important. I say he pairs well with the other cards we have, because with Freezing Band on board, your opponent will not quest as much, since questing usually lets you draw cards. And yeah, your opponent already can't draw cards during his turn, except for his 1 card per turn, so he won't usually quest. That means we get to use his quests. Also, with Last Relic of Argus on board, we can complete his quests for 1 mana less, since Last Relic of Argus reduces all our quests for 1 mana. And when we complete a quest, we heal for 3. Meaning also when we complete an opposing quest, we heal for 3 damage. Yeah, that's a nice little synergy, making Toshi stronger and worthwhile play. Then we have Twisted Arcana. Twisted Arcana is a really strong card draw card, especially since every other card in this deck stays on the board for at least a specific amount of time. And we can use Twisted Arcana really well in this deck. Best use, obviously, is to trigger Retainer Ethan. Then Smoldering Blast, we also went over. Spell Suppression, in my opinion, the best card in the game, and you should always play 4 copies of this card in any main mage deck, because we can target any ability, ally, equipment, or resource, and they lose their powers. It's basically a removal that can target everything for 1 mana. There's no equivalent card to that in the game. The only card that comes close in the kind of capabilities would be Voodoo Mask. We play 2 of them in the main deck. And Voodoo Mask, what it does is we can name an ability or equipment with 3 or less, and that card always, well, loses its power. So if your opponent has 3 copies of any card costing 3 or less, then we can name that card and all 3 copies lose their effects, making this a really valuable card. We can only have 2 trinkets, and there's not a use for miniature Voodoo Mask against every deck, so we only play 2. But we have another one in the sideboard. Amulet of Spell Shield is really strong against a lot of decks as well. For 1 mana, giving our hero Spell Shield is kind of ridiculous. Also not useful against every deck, but there's some decks that will basically instantly lose to Amulet of Spell Shield. Also very strong decks right now, for example Bogmara, depend on hitting you, targeting your hero, making Amulet of Spell Shield a great counter against Bogmara. And this deck in general works well against Bogmara. Then we have Arcane Intuition. Arcane Intuition serves 2 purposes. First, we can play this ability for free during our first turn, during the preparation, because of the preparation keyword. Then when we play this ability, we just draw 1 card, and we increase our maximum hand size by 1. The latter effect usually is not that useful, but in this deck it actually comes in handy because we play Worthy of Passing. Worthy of Passing lets us draw 1 card for each 3 casts we exhaust with this quest. So since every card we play is an ongoing card, we can set worthy of passing off for drawing 6 cards. And then having the extra hand size actually comes really, really clutch in many drawn out games. So this is why we play Arcane Intuition, also makes this deck basically smaller and gives us an additional target for Twisted Arcana if we don't have a retainer, or, well, yeah, we just need an additional target. Arcane Intuition is a great card. Mystic Denial, this one we play also against slower decks. Once we get off our combo, it's usually game over, especially if we have Mystic Denial. Let's say we discard our opponent's hand turn 4, and turn 5 we interrupt his next card, then he can't draw any more cards. So he has to wait until his turn 6, play another card, and then the first card that resolves will be turn 7. And by that point we hopefully accumulated a lot of damage, and, well, that's basically one card that he can play. We should have accelerated beyond the point where he can come back at that point. And that's all the abilities, equipment, and allies. Can go over the resources. Shadowfang Keep, as I mentioned. Rituals of Power is basically a spell suppression for 1 turn, making it really valuable. A nice niche application that you can keep in mind is the first Voodoo Mask that enters play. If you name a Voodoo Mask, then the opposing Voodoo Masks lose all their powers. But if you then play Voodoo Mask and you rituals your opponent's Voodoo Mask, then your Voodoo Mask will suppress their Voodoo Mask. And yeah, that can come into handy. Like, there's a lot of situations where Rituals of Power is really helpful. So we play 2 of those. 4 Worthy of Passing, since we have so many ongoings. Then we play 4 times Overseer's Shadow, since we play a lot of abilities, equipments, and allies. Usually you want to draw 3 cards, but sometimes you'll have to pay 4 to draw 2, which is also alright. But yeah, it's a really sweet card if we can draw 3 for 4 mana. And then we have 4 Great Honor, one of the most efficient quests if you have a lot of targets that are outcost, since it reveals 3 cards and you can choose an outcost. And as it so happens, we have a lot of cards that cost 1, 3, or 5. So 4 Great Honor has more than 30 targets, making this a really valuable quest as well. So we have a nice quest line. We have a strong win condition through Retainer, and we have a lot of damage via our allies. So Garmon is, like I said, a strong defensive tool, but also if your opponent does not have allies, he's a strong offensive tool as well. Dealing 5 damage every turn, adds up quite fast. The hero we play is Morgana's Blackvein. We can flip in, and opponents can't draw cards this turn. This pairs really well with Retainer Ethan if we don't have Freezing Band. Or if we have Freezing Band, we can lock our opponent for 1 more turn. Then let's go over the sideboard and we're done. We have 1 copy each of Water Elemental, Baxton, and Garmon. Well, basically every card we play in the sideboard we already have in the main deck. Just depends on what deck you're facing, you'll have to adjust a bit. And then we play 3 Fizzle, also matchup dependent. If your opponent plays a lot of abilities, especially, for example, abilities like Corpse Explosion, that really you don't want to encounter, then playing 3 Fizzle can save you these matchups. Since we do require our allies to win the game, like a Corpse Explosion that destroys 3 of our allies can be a hassle. And yeah, that's it. You can tell me what you think about it. See ya.